Hi, my name is Kevin Thomas Morgan, and I like that quote, I think, by Socrates, that it's a wise man who knows himself. Well, for years I didn't know myself, but fortunately, 3 years ago, I was walking past a table at the Weaver Street Market, my usual coffee shop, and there was a lady reading a book, and as I usually do, I asked, is it a good book? Anyway, she eventually invited me to sit down and chat. And this is 3 years ago when I was in my late 70s. And we got talking, and after about 10 minutes she says, Kevin, do you know that you are on the autism spectrum? And I said, why do you say that? I had no idea. She said, well, my day job is teaching children with autism how to read, and you behave just like them. I also have a friend who calls me Mr. Spock, which I thought was strange. And during my life, people have told me I have no empathy, that I'm monomaniacal, that I'm eccentric, and I often fail to understand people. Anyway, fortunately, as a result of this interchange and being a scientist, I decided to further investigate this and came across an interesting test of autism, or Aspergers, and they are very different. Aspergers is essentially very functional, and autism is not so functional socially, and it can actually be socially crippling, as I know from a friend of mine's son. Anyway, I found this test online, the AQS test, Autism Spectrum test, and I decided to do a study. So I interviewed over 100 people in my neighborhood, asked them who were willing to take the test. I generated scores for each, and asked each one, what their career was or their passion, and tabulated it and generated this graph where I calculated the number of people in each score group from 0 to 5, I guess, 6 to 10, 11 to 15, and so forth. And there I discovered the importance of both ends of the so-called autism spectrum, which I prefer to call the passion-reason spectrum. All that stuff's in a little book I wrote, which I really enjoyed writing that. It was fascinating. But most importantly, I learned a lot about myself. I also understood better why people have trouble communicating across each end of the spectrum. Interestingly enough, I have a friend I bike with, Tracy, who is a number 6 on this scale, whereas I'm a 37 right at the other end. And if she gets upset about something, she comes out in a rash, even a whole body rash. So this is emotion-driven inflammation. I tend to resort to logic and logic circuits, which causes people to think maybe I don't care about things. An important thing to know is empathy means that you can't relate to someone else's feelings. It doesn't mean you don't care about them. That's very, very different. But also I think it's an advantage to be at my end of the spectrum because you remain very logical under situations of stress. When I was a vet dealing with a run-over dog or something like that, I could stay calm. I didn't get upset, whereas most of the people around me were all, being emotional about the dog, but that didn't fix the dog, did it? Been hit by a car, so I'd shoo them away and I would fix the problem. Anyway, I wrote about this stuff in my little book, which was quite fun to write, I must admit. And the study was interesting, and being a scientist, that was my approach to the issue. And I'd like to say thank you so much, Jennifer, for drawing my attention to this fascinating topic. And I hope my little book helps people communicate across different ends of the spectrum. I forgot. One quick note. As a pathologist, I know the difference between a benign tumor, like an adenoma, and a malignant tumor that will kill you, like an adenocarcinoma, though adenomas could kill you if they block an airway or something. Anyway, when it comes to autism and Asperger's, I see autism very differently to Asperger's. To me, Asperger's is it's socially challenging but socially benign. It means you can function, you can get around. In fact, you can do extremely well. Whereas autism is socially malignant, he becomes socially dysfunctional, like Rory in a group home. He can't function outside, he can't feed himself, get a job, and so I see this autism as functionally malignant, whereas Asperger's is functionally benign, and it's a very gray area in between. Take Temple Grandin, for instance. If it wasn't for her mother, she would have been labeled autistic and in a home. Instead, she became a highly functional person with a very high Asperger's score, in my opinion. So I think it's extremely important to separate those two, and it's also helpful to avoid the use of pharmaceuticals in the case of Asperger's if you can. That's my personal opinion. A person with Asperger's needs a different environment. So that's my addendum to this video, coming from the perspective of a pathologist, a veterinary pathologist. Okay, nice talking to you. So that's it. Over and out from Kevin Morgan and his Asperger's Memoire.